Thank you very much to Tracy Stoll, Samarito and JB9 for all becoming members of the Kinetic Rugby League channel. If you'd like to become a member, you can do for as little as £1 a month by clicking the join button below this video. Thank you to everyone for their support. Let's get on with the video. Splitting these teams into groups, I'm going to start with the bottom two. So in 12th I have Salford Red Devils and in 11th I have Huddersfield Giants. With Salford, this time it's just not on. You have McDonald, Masters, Hankinson, Briley, Ormonroyd, Stone and Shorrocks starting, and then players like Sangare, Wilson and Chan on the bench. I'm all for cutting Salford a bit of slack, but conceding 72 points with the majority of your squad being regulars or Super League capable players is just unacceptable. But with Huddersfield, fair play with slight improvements in recent weeks, but getting battered like that with the players they actually have available is also completely unacceptable. I can also cut Huddersfield some slack for having to change their team basically every single week. However, this is getting ridiculous now. Either Luke Robinson needs to go, or the Giants need to get him an elite squad for next season to have half a chance of making the top six. In the next group, I have Castleford Tigers, Catalans Dragons and Warrington Wolves. Warrington being the only movers in that group. They're moving down one this week. Castleford have now comfortably moved away from the bottom of the pack in my opinion, and there's a chance they could actually move off the bottom three for next week's list. Now, they were beaten comfortably by Leeds at the weekend, but I don't think their efforts were too bad if I'm honest. They were just outperformed by a clearly better side. They still aren't exactly a good side, but are nowhere near as bad as the two teams below them. Then I'd absolutely love to move Catalans down to 12th just because of how disappointing they are this season, because there is no way they lose back-to-back games by 40 plus points, scoring 0 with the players they have. I don't care about any excuses with McNamara being sacked for this week. That is a gutless effort 2 weeks running. They are so easy to pin back, there's such a lack of penetration with their forwards, and they are unbelievably clueless and dull in possession. Then I have Warrington moving down one into 8th place. Regular viewers will know I'm normally quite harsh on Warrington as they're my team, but all things considered, I wasn't that disappointed with the efforts of the weekend versus Hull KR. I was confident that we wouldn't win in the first place, but the fact we gave ourselves half a chance in parts is slightly promising for Wembley in a few weeks' time. We were missing Walker and Williams, Vaughan was unavailable, Sneed didn't play, but I think he was being rested. I don't know if it was due to an injury, I just think he was being rested for this one. We just lost Musgrove, and Ollie Leyland came off injured in the first half, so I'm not that disappointed. Ratchford and Corey played in the halves and it was a good effort from both of them. And I have to give a massive amount of praise to Joe Philbin. His intent for every single carry was excellent. We were outperformed and we're still a long way off in both attack and defence, but I'm happy with the effort under the circumstances. But before I get on to the next group, I'm actually going to cover 7th place on their own, which is going to be St Helens moving up one this week. Now, after weeks and weeks and weeks of complaints about their attack, they've put up 40 and 46 points in their last two games. Now, I'm well aware that Catalans and Huddersfield aren't good sides, but a lot of other teams have played those sides this year and not been able to put up 40 plus points. They might actually be quite settled with Wellesby, Lomax, Whitby and Clark as their spine, with Saylor on the right wing and then Bai coming on later into the game. But there's still a margin to the next group of teams for me. But they've got a big game coming up against Hull KR at the weekend, which you'd imagine, 1, they'll go into with a lot of confidence, and 2, there is a good chance that Hull KR rest a good handful of players before the Challenge Cup final. But we'll have to see about that one. But that's St Helens moving up 1 in 7th. So on to the next group, I have Leigh Leopards moving down 2, which means I have Wakefield Trinity and Hull FC both moving up 1. Leigh didn't show up for a good hour against Hull FC. Now, they had a good handful of opportunities in great field position, either due to penalties or turnovers from Hull FC. Sometimes they made progress up the field themselves, but when they're in great field position, they couldn't make anything happen. Now, their discipline wasn't great, and they made too many errors, not completing sets at a high enough rate, and they were very easy to pin back in their own half a lot of the times. I think their performance was uncharacteristic, so we won't regularly see this from Leigh, but for me, it was so poor. Compare that to the performances of teams around them in last week's power rankings, I do think they deserve to move down this week. But Wakefield, they played Salford and beat them 72-10 at the weekend, and going off what I said about Salford earlier, they had a good handful of first-team players available, and Wakefield for me exceeded expectations. I thought that Wakefield would win. I thought that Wakefield would win quite comfortably. Not that comfortably. They exceeded expectations. And they've done that now in back-to-back weeks. People might have had them to beat Warrington last week, but probably not that comfortably. So they've earned a move up this week. Now their forwards are carrying the ball extremely well. They're shifting the ball with so much pace. And defensively, they're putting up a really solid wall at the moment. They've got a really big test coming up next week, which I'm excited to see against Leeds. And best of luck to them because they're performing really well. It's going to be a hell of a game. I've got Wakefield moving up 1 this week. Next up, we have Hull FC, who reclaimed 4th spot after dropping down last week. But their performance against Leigh was a hell of a response after recent results. The kicking game from Caesar was really effective. There were well-placed kicks with a good kick chase off the back of it. Their defensive line was actually excellent for most of the game. They looked so solid defensively, and it must have been really frustrating for Leigh because they moved the ball around a fair bit and had to go at crashing over a lot. But Hull stood really strong, and in possession they looked decent. Strong carries from the forwards, plenty of offloads, and as I said, it's been a tough few weeks, but it was a great response this week from Hull FC. Finally, the top 3, which remains unchanged with Leeds Rhinos, Hull Kingston Rovers and Wigan Warriors. When I say this about Leeds, it's not to knock them in any way, but there was nothing that special about their performance at the weekend versus Cass, but to be very clear, they didn't need to be. It just felt like they did what they needed to, just going through the motions because their pack size and speed and attack was just always too strong for the Tigers. Not to say they were lazy or anything in how they went about their business. Cass made it tough in patches, but Leeds were in full control for most of that game, just based on the fact that they are a bigger side, a fitter side, a more creative side, as a unit, or even on an individual level. Leeds, again, weren't that special, but to be very clear, they didn't need to be. They were just far superior in most departments. Then Hull Kingston Rovers stay in 2nd place. They're still picking up those wins on a week-to-week basis, but that pesky team from Wigan, they just keep winning as well, don't they? Keeping Hull KR off the top spot. Now, in the red zone against Warrington, the Robins moved the ball around really well. It felt like they could just walk in a lot of the time, but defensively they did a great job in the red zone as well. I think the game was a little more chaotic than they used to. They didn't pin back Warrington as much as I thought they would, but when Warrington tried to shift the ball in the midfield, for example, they gave them hardly any room to work with and closed the door very quickly, especially for Matt Duffy. But on to Wigan, they just aren't messing up at the moment. For the most part in games, they're in full control. They're moving the ball really well, especially down the left-hand side. They're kicking well off the back of Harry Smith and chasing well off the back of it as well. They're staying well disciplined. Maybe the last 2 results were a little closer than they would have liked, but they broke that cycle this week with a 48-0 win against the Catalans Dragons. And there's a chance they could be top of the ladder after round 13. They're really chasing that at the moment, but their performances in all departments are just too strong for all teams right now. I think they are clearly the strongest side in the competition as of right now. Well, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have your own power rankings, let me know in the comment section down below. But as always, if you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like. It does help to get the video out there to more people. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with more Kinetic Rugby League content. And if you'd like to join the Kinetic Rugby League Discord, you can do by clicking the invite link in the description down below. And also, if you'd like to become a member, you can do for as little as £1 a month by clicking the join button below this video. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.